Okay, grounding, shifting lines, anomalies, line position, location, intel, suburban consciousness on 101. We're in platform middle location of planetary lines, inner core to its setting location to its outer projection of space and time itself. So we have to modify how we see that in set lines of travel. This helps us to get in position lines of balance through its intelligence information that everything's attached and tethered to you, and how it sees you in projection of light to its position of it sees its performance, location, your settings, E factors or lines, directing ground center location settings into platforms to operation systems and line set locations, and how you get any projections of your minds in your imagination settings. Okay? All right. Superconscious comes on information of its intel. Understand that positions, understand how to calculate and modify. So we're going to get a converting line ground locations to your foundation system, your planetary settings. Not process your solar systems because you're not radiating your system attractions until you understand how to use the inner core to the outer core inside of you and provisions how to use it into the set position calculation setting. So this calculates all through modification grounds and high lines and signals. This also gets position locations how to come into power generation lines and set position operation itself. Sets all position location measured. The scales of communication settings is time centers. So you got 3 calculations, 3 zeros. Okay. So this is how we modify time frame. 0, 0, 0, and conversations of 4. We got into the basic ground line communications. Okay. All through travel, so that's the communications, right? Recognizing platforms comes in its own circulation of its portals, see? And its light in center of operation, which is always in the center. That converting lines and line coordinating, directing lines in position line discord are located in dispatch. See my hand? See that? Over the light? See? See that's how powerful it is? Right? Seconds, minutes, and hours in travel. Okay? So each finger point travels in 3 centers. Process of 1, process of 2, process of 3 lines of weather, line operation setting to your position of its performance, into its flights and its manifold, and to 4 signals to its operant setting. That process here indicates a setting of 7 that gets in your modification lines of travel. Okay? Okay, so it's a waving screen. Right? Times centers, times calculations, times pi. So 42 in the grounds, 42 centers, 42 lights, 42 travels. High sequence calculation, 9 line centers. I sequence, I positions the calculation ground location. Platforms and line center locations. So time formats a system at scale that communicates the settings off through operation setting and travel. Converting lines of 1, process lines of 2.
Babe, I told you. Don't go there. Don't go there.
Always be prepared for distractions in that position location of operation. Okay, so we have directing lines of flights. Okay, so we convert the centers of 12 frames. Process of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 locations. Okay. Now the time measures the platforms and steady converges lines 8 planetary lines of solar systems. Now the solar systems are out of sync, out of position, out of travel until you convert your lines of planetary line operations and how to go through your line course centers to course and recourse through converting setting of direct and redirect in the same signal of operation. So you got to go through 3 grounds and understand it through its travel. They understand position that you go through 4 centers, which is a direct line link to Discord and dispatch. That process here indicates the setting to your traffic number. So that indicates position of its projections over its flight manifolds, and location of its flux over travel. So time measures the scales. It puts operation settings in calculation. Ash projections of time centers of tablets, information settings. Setting 0 of operation and platforms of triangulation over processing, all through direction. And in knowing exactly how to go through time tablets and position location, your position line centers and your efficacies to your performance. Okay, 12 centers on location and 12 centers above location and 24 lines of clocking. So you have to really understand how to use it in the superconscious levels of travel. Okay, as it gets more complicated, set position of operation itself. Okay, in schematics over lines and a simulation location of travel and face recognition. See the face? Okay. So calculate and modify your settings all through travel representative timelines. Process your zeros now, 3 times the lines of flux. So that indicates every finger point has 4 line rotations and 5 scale in line operation. So you got 4 finger point line graphs, process of 0, 0. That's 3 measures scale. And let's work with 4 centers of calculation. 4 centers of measure, okay, and set position, and 1 center of scale line operation, thumbs up. Has a direct line link that processes your positions of 7 into 1 setting, which is process of 0, 1 platform. That process line connections to triangulation box, dispatch into flux, and center operation is the position of portal, which is your Fibonacci. Okay. Now you got channel operation screens. Process of 3, process of 4 is the 7 indication setting that puts you in position line to set travel. So when you call dispatch formation system goes through its Discord. In each correlation setting has a 3-second lines of value that volumes the vast location of its system that goes through its temperature reading barometers and its thermometer location setting of travel. Converts the angles, and that converts settings to the position of its portal into its bridging into the central system of the planetary system that you want to connect with and set position of operation. Okay, so getting that position locations, process of 0, 1, once you get into that, you come in your 7-digit number. Now your 7-digit number changes every 3, 6, 9, and 12 lines of 24. Once it reaches 24, you have an open conversation setting through an open transmission, and that settings. So that process communication setting, the planetary comes to you, sends you an information setting, identifies your 7-digit code. Now you can go through an area code or you can go through line position, but you're always processing through 0, 1 because you're in the grounds, okay? And then you're heading to position of 0, 1 that goes into your position, which is your false narrative, which is open space in your projection locations, all right? So the in-ground has 3 lines of measure right here. This is the truth narrative, okay? That's a truth narrative, okay? And this is the false narrative of your system, okay? 3 and 3, right? So 3 charge mechanisms of 3 grounds, 1, 2, and 3 lines of rotation, okay? Now, this process is where you go into the walking in position to get to that temperature reading, to that barometer location setting, in that calculations, to the planetary system, or you can float, fly, or levitate. Okay, so you go through that lines of channel. Either way, you have to understand how to balance all 4 set lines of operation itself to get you in positions how you get in calculation your open transmissions, any transmissions, and in your phone call, hanging up, and go with another time frame into another planetary rotation system and travel through truth and false narrative set position. All right. So that's how it's set up, location, and cycle. Okay, through a walking platform. In each one that you go through, you're setting up planetation systems of travel. Okay, in set position and operation. Okay. So once you get in that position, you can backtrack. If you end the conversations, you go back down the stepping, and it goes back to the failsafe in set position. Okay. So I'll just show you a little bit closer how you see an information setting, right? Now, if you're going in position of floating, you go in different direction lines, centers of clock lines, and foundations. Or if you're getting position in centers and flying, you're going through portal lines of sequence. So you have to truly understand how to go through the astral realms, portals, stargates, or anything a wormhole. And that process is how you go in levitation. Levitation is laser graphs of communication now, because it gets locked in position, because a UFO doesn't fly, it levitates. Okay, through solar line ground. All right, so it zigzags. Right? So walking, okay, floating, getting used to gravity, the grounds, no ground line positions, and flying, okay, and levitating, okay. So there's a 4 ground line centers of purpose that you go through and travel, okay. Very powerful set position for operation, okay. So that all indicates position of 3 lines of foundations. Start in that position with systems through its highways in its position of its performance of location. Its traffic and its runway. Okay? Now understanding that position of its platforms, then you come to provisions into your primer circuits, processing 3 lines of communication system and travel. Okay? Which is your highways, your primers and your primers, okay? So it scales the meters, the metrics, and line position of its operation. Okay. And then you go 4 to 2 line streamings, 50% mark. And then you go your set position runways inside of travel. Inside of travel. Okay. Inside of travel. All right. So once you get into that, you come in your panels and your time flux to time center. And then you convert the system as ceiling of your Skynet in set position. That's your Skynet. And that position your settings, off through travel, off through positions, off through operation setting. Okay? Your planetary setting location, your traffic, your runways, and your highways. Okay, so once you get in that, okay, you go in line position of all lulls. So that process 3, 6, and then you cross over. Okay, that's 9, and that's position of 12 to its operation. Okay? Face recognition, see? Right away, there's a symbiote. Okay, so the I division lines the center and opens all state location setting and forwarded to location of streaming. Comes into the face recognition of time frame, your actual face recognition of your symbiote. Fortificates the system all through travels in time centers of flux over travel communication setting, which you do process calculation your line center location of your 2 vessels that you're using in rotation. Direction of time 1 and position 2 flux over travel, right? You work with that inside lines, inside position locations, and grounds, powers, and atmospheres. Okay, there's your Stargate. So that indicates the flux line that you go through one line in division, which is the right line, or the left line of space. But remember, it's the planetary operation lines of signals that you have to modify through. Sending 3 grounds in set position of travel. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line and positions and settings all through set position operation of simulation. Okay, there it is. There's the grounds, right? Now, when you have the grounds, the ground eyes, the line, center, the lines, the setting, then you bring the astral projection of your programs in set position. Okay, and then you back it out, operation setting, and then you read recourse, and you move over to the left eye of operation setting. Okay, starting position lines of calculation system, all through star makers time frame. So a Stargate can be anything in a formation setting. It doesn't have to be an 8 corner, doesn't have to be a 6 corner, doesn't have to be a 4 corner. It all aligns to the aligned positions already set up in your body that you have to recognize in position of flux. So we go through that position channel operation screens, do the same thing again, 50 mark, and travels at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 locations. Grounding your systems all through simulation, all through travel. Okay? So what you set up the running programs of your system. Okay? And you back out. Now this is what you look like inside your eyes. It's that position of operation. Okay? So, and then you have your door direction and time frame. Okay? So you got Earth and you got space. You got 6 positions of programs that you're modifying through line communication running ops and set lines of operation. And then you have your door. There's your door, time frame. So position of handle of operation setting. Okay? And then you go through platforms and sending in travel. Okay, converting the door like this and 4 lines of scale. 1, 2, 3. Door makes a line connection setting, converting time frames of flux. Okay, there's your doors, right? So, and then basically you come into position lines of setting and you see it on the translation system, transparent, going the opposite direction, see? Set position here and set position here, right? So you have light, shades, and shadows. You need light, shades, and shadows on both sides. So it's important to understand that through flux at time centers that puts position location in your platforms and set lines of travel. Okay? So you can modify your ground lines and operation signals, how you go through location setting, to the I-line stop operation setting of pattern face recognition. Okay? Earth setting of operation, 3 programs running at once in your house projections, and your space. And set to track locations. Okay? All right. So that just gives you a basic understanding through black and white. The face recognition goes on. Bring it out, and there it is in set position of operation. Okay? Highways and conversion, your efficacies and your performance, and how you come in your lines of your delta headings, your Tango Tango Foxtrot locations and settings that put you in position locations, how you see 3 lines of scale and 4 centers of measure, which is a 7-line position of projection, that you see identification of light over travel. Okay? So it's very powerful how you see it in pattern face recognition. Okay, that's how you work with your settings into more modifications inside the eyes itself. Okay, there's gain 3. Okay, process line position of gain 3 again. 1 in Earth, 1 in space. That's game 6. So you got 6 games running all at once in 1 eye division and set lines of space. Okay, and you have a door direction and time frame. Okay, which is the process of the pyramid. In and out, exit, right? Everything has to have an input and output in audio. Now you have to formulate each setting because you have to understand how to use the wire setting your lines of panel. This helps you to identify the dimensional systems that you go through correlations in your highways and set position of travel. Okay? Very, very powerful stuff, right? Now you see all portals coming in, see? All circulation setting. All circles, right? All circles. Really, 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 really fast, right? And remember, it's constantly moving on its own operation of itself. Body just has to recognize its flights, its manifolds, and its pathogens to its collagens of its neural networks, neuropathological system, and the body has to stand the super of its consciousness, how to identify everything, how it travels through 0-1 of grounds and 0-1 of space in its operation of its planetary system and set calculations, all through pattern face recognition. Okay? So that's what you have to modify through. Okay? Running both ops inside the right and set position of the left eye and travel. Okay? And the door that you're connected to, right? So once you understand that, you come into sonograph interference of white. Okay, set up another highway and travel, 3 converting settings. There's the flux right there. See the line signal? Then you bring it in. Always mark your scales and set position of settings. Start with that position. Okay, and then you go above the system like this. Okay? Then you work outside your system in that line setting. Okay, so you set up perimeter parameters or location setting. That sets your position lines of travel. Okay, so you got 4 directions, and then you go inside position. There it is set location. Okay, and then you cross down and set position. There's your Merkaba, tetragon, tetrahedron. Okay, so that's where it starts off and set position of operation super consciousness. Okay, so that's a center point that stays in the center of operation itself. That modifies everything that it goes through in set lines of operation and setting. Okay, so once we come into that, we come into the platforms of E equals MC, square root over triangulation and plantation. The grounds, okay? Okay, so once we understand that, we understand the circulation, and then we understand the rotation of north, west, south, and east. That modifies your structure longitude, your latitudes of what you're going in space lines of anomaly. Okay, to the inner course, to the outer course, the inner spectrum, the outer spectrum, inner space to outer space, inner norm to outer norm. Okay, inner orbit to outer orbit in position. Okay, so once you get that, position lines and settings, then you come into high course centers and 42 lights of travel. Each eye indicates position. From here to here is a window. Everything line connects. Everything has to connect to everything. Everything has to connect to everything. Cross line direct centers of locations. There's your simulation. Okay? That's your simulation that you come into the box named super consciousness. And you see it through face recognition. See, another face, right? All right, so once we have that platform, then we get position locations and settings. That process lines of indicates and setting of travel. So vertical lines of 3 angles and position of 4 set travel. Because you're always working with 7 locations to modify your settings of travel, communications. Directing ground centers of ceiling operations and set position. How many line signals do you want to send in travel? Okay, but that's how you see it in the simulation. All right, and then you ground your systems and set position. Okay, in chronological order of travel. There's your simulation. Okay, now you travel through it, right? But you can't travel through it until you understand how to walk in space through superintelligence. Floating, flying, and levitating is extremely, extremely important in your system as 7 digital frames. All 3 simulation. Now, understand your simulation. Your simulation gets bigger in time frame. Okay, to its modification setting, to its building of its assets of rotation, surface, and travel. Comes in that position location setting. Okay. Now, once you open up the lines and meters and metrics, longitude and latitudes, it opens up more communication system in your time templates of Windows frames and lines of position, which comes into your setting to applications your framing of all direct locations. Okay, it opens up more. Okay, so we start with that position. Look from inside, see your simulation. Okay, now getting into walking in space in the simulation lines into astral projection of yourself, you go through your platforms. So we go on 45 angles and 3 centers. Set up 4 platforms of travel, okay? Walking, okay? All right, so process that direct centers of floating is eye signals of north, east, west, and south of indications, all right? That's you floating, okay? Floating, see? Floating in space of north, west, south, and east, okay? Floating, all right? Flying. Okay, flying is a whole different concept of portal communication. Now, flying to the set position locations, once you have the box frame triangulation of all course centers times pi calculation ground center locations, then you come into the center operation of your clocking system, okay, which is your flying, creating portals. Okay, there's the portal. And that position of 45 angles correlates the calculation time frame of flux, how many times you want to go through dimensions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dimensions of flights. And set lines of travel. Okay, so you go in 8th dimension in line position of 4 clocking center. So it sets time scales, sets position lines of measure and operation signals of location setting and travel. So it covers lines of 12. Okay, so we've got 12 signals into, let's just start off with the 12 line clocking and that position locations. So I'm just showing exactly how powerful it works in set lines of setting. So you can process indicates what's going on in lines of travel. Okay, so as it goes around again, your platforms circulate the system and travel. Okay, it goes up in 4 platforms, your cerebral cortex is at position of scale. Okay, so it comes in location grid. There's a location grid, which is a rainbow. Then it goes to the frost bridge, which is another bridge. So that's 2 bridgings of 1 that projects locations, open up the portal, and open up line conditions of its bridging of communication of travel, open through transmission, right? And you look at that in set position operation itself. Okay, then you see yourself on the platform in set position, walking. Okay, so you understand walking, that position location of floating, flying, and levitating. Levitating is around the system of travel. Okay, knowing exactly how to go through circulation rotations and process communications. Okay, north, teleportation, east, teleportation, and west and south. Okay? 4 teleportation vessels. Okay? Traveling through its tracker system, directing here. Okay? Now it's directing here. Now it's crossing over here. Now this is over here. Now this is over here. So it's getting used to its travel of levitating. Okay? So it's a lot to process to indicate the settings all through face recognition. There's the face. See the face? Okay? So there's a lot of conditions setting to travel there, guys, in that drawing of schematics that you have to process through and engage through your super consciousness, how to use that in your 0-1s, your flights, your manifolds, location, your console, and your navigation setting. Okay? It's all process how you use it in your FAAs and your ETAs, your IPAs, your iOS, and your DOS. But I'm just showing you the basic grounds of super consciousness, how you modify your settings of 0-1 of Earth and 0-1 of space of travel. Okay? Walking, floating, flying, and levitating in the mind of super consciousness. And how to understand that is all through portals and stargates and travel. All in set position operation. Okay? Covered in time frames. So once you understand more levels of the expansion, your simulation gets bigger inside the mind of the I concept. So process this way, and your line signatures get a lot bigger in time frame. So you're bringing more force fields around the boxing of a triangulation box, the time sign and location of itself. Okay? So basically, you're making it bigger, and it's coming into the position of the outbound. So you're coming into the gravity grounds, into volume and mass, 3 centers of triangle, 4 centers of measure, 5 centers of scale of communication. So it has a direct line link that you process through and travel. Okay? Okay, so you work with that. And let's get in ground lines, the position of void, over lines into centers of travel converting. Okay, so we indicate position of grounds and position lines of travel. Inside position, outside lines of scale of communication. Like this, it's that position. Okay, working with that setting. Okay? So you have to truly understand how to see everything. That's that position. Okay? So the more you see that, the more you see the grounds, the more you see yourself on the simulation game, how you want to see yourself running the system. Right there. And time flux in here, time flux in here. So the body gets a 3-second delay. 1, 2, 3. And then it moves. 1, 2, 3. Right? That's what the body does outside. But the inside is already in provision. So the provision is 3 cycles, 3 centers, 3 zeros of operation, right? Time through flux, time capacitor. Understanding that is all through time scale, time measure, time balance. So it's positional locations and setting to the mind's eye that processes everything. So it runs 3 lines of signals, 3 lines of zeros, and now the body outside is running 3 times, right? So it's going 2 steps or 3 steps. So it's running 3 steps. It's in delay of 3 seconds. That's 3 seconds delay. So it's running now, or it's walking now, or it's floating, or it's flying, or it's levitating. So it's all processed on 4 engagements in 1 cycle, 1 setting, 1 operation, 1 locations. So this helps you to identify your system, how you go through the mind's eye, and how you project everything through the body that goes through the remote control of its system, right? So it's a 3-second delay of security, right? So it's 1, 2, 3-second delay that the body goes through, right? So now it's going 3 steps. So the intel, the intelligence of the superconsciousness is putting you in position of you going forward first, and then there's a 3 or 4-second delay that the body goes through the seconds, minutes, and hours. Because it's not really a delay, okay? You've always been in balance with yourself, but now you have to integrate more levels of the mind and how to use it through the super of its consciousness and indicate what you're doing through travel. Okay, as you're going in position of walking, floating, flying, or levitating in space through the super consciousness of 0-1 in travel. Okay? So there you go. Okay? So now if it goes back to set position of failsafe, it's already gone through 3 settings and then it sits back down in the chair. So if it sits back down in the chair in that position, it's starting a new frequency panel, which is starting a new game. Okay? So you can run those operation games and set lines of operation settings. So it's amazing how you can change the formation setting that processes you with indications all through travel. Okay? And this is just through black and white and red. But it's all done through a road graphing screen in holographic locations. How you modify that in positions to your eye centers that puts you in all process communication system, all through eye lines operation itself, inside the eye, right there. So that's a lot of activity going on in your system. In the mind's eye of travel. In set position. Okay? So much activity going on. All right, so we got that positionalize the panel. And you can see it in all different levels too. Okay? So it's really interesting how you see it on so many set position of operation. Okay? It's very powerful when it runs its own operation of itself that you have to modify through the body that's already adjusted and aligned itself through its travel. Okay, so we got that straightened out. Now, once we modify the time frame line flux, it changed the configuration of your finger points. Okay, so that process line position. What I want you guys to do is go on YouTube or any video, just take your finger and put it on the video screen as they're speaking. They're going to speed up. That's going to indicate where your brain capacity is. So the mind knows exactly where it is in flux of time capacitor time now, which is the center operation of itself, that the sentient or the symbiote or the DOS gets a communication system, understanding what's going on of its flux of denomination system to an animation lines of grounds lines of flux of travel. Converted time frames, this process lines position of platforms. Okay, so the process lines of 1.0. Okay, we got 1. Online position 5. And we've got position of 2.0. Okay, and we got 2.2. Okay, so there's the line condition setting where you are at dynamic lines, your finger point lines of graph. Each one has its own time frame, that position location setting, but you recognize everything you go through is lines of the past, present, and future, always in the now, the center operation of itself. So you have to modify the position time frame and flux of 3 portals and position lines of settings and 4 channels of operation. All right. So each finger point is a ground lines of graph that indicates the system all through travel calculations. Right. So let's say in position locations you're at 1.0, right? Okay, so that's 1.0. And that's basically going from that position to 2.0, 2.2, 1.5, or back to 2.0, right? And so it's all about changing the line position of your finger points, how it modifies time temperature readings of your system all through travel. So this helps you ground your settings, how you process position of 1 and process lines of 2.2. Okay, so you got 1 and you got 2.2. Okay, process that. 0, 1. Okay, since in setting you have a triangulation. Okay. Now you can set a triangulation at the top line, your graphing line course centers, circle locations, any position, your inventories. Triangulation box, but you always have to put your flux and you always have to put your Fibonacci. So you go in position lines of travel. So you can convert this way, down process signals, process lines of 2 measurement scale, split lines of anomalies, and 3 centers of sectors, vectors and quadrants of squads. So 3 centers of scale, 4 centers of measure. There's everything of 3 that process lines of 3 direct line calculations setting in seconds, minutes, hours, and flux. Okay? So it's about understanding how to platform your communication system all through travel and indicate ground centers. Okay, that position, location, measure, and scale, measure and platform, measure and travel, line position and recourse, reline centers, line connection, and set position, location of systems, all through set lines of graph of communication, all through direction, right? It's amazing too when you see it on a platform and set lines of travel through dimension, solar sail. Okay, sending signal, location setting, then you cross the angle. Cross-examination is extremely important in your system because it puts 3 lines of angles of 3, 1, 2, and 3, in positions of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because you're always working with 3 centers and 4 centers, which is the foundation lines of the female cycle, which is always the male cycle. So it's big understanding how to direct and redirect in the same set location of echo and sonar. Setting temperature reading locations of barometers and thermometers change the course time frame. The open all lines of panels opens all more process and more communication setting and simulation lines of graphs. Sets communication setting in 3 planetary systems all through travel. Okay, so it converts the setting of ceilings to its operating system that records its calculation system in its set calculation. Okay, I know it's getting complicated, but it's a lot more fun when you get into simulation grounds. So process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12th dimension, right? That's 12th dimension, right? So the planetary system comes in recourse and it higher lines the calculation grounds. Okay, coming in position lines the system, right? According to calculating modified dispatch, you process your triangulation box into your flux, into your positions, your Fibonacci, recourse your channels, open up signals of open transmission to your settings, okay? Like this. So you connect to the planet, planet's connecting with you all through bridging, right? And then you have an ongoing conversation, right? Or you can basically end transmission in that position and go to the next frequency. So you open and close those doors, close those panels, close those open signals, close those portals and stargates. Then in that position location, measure and scale, and then it changes time flux to set position of operation, right? Goes to another time frame, right? Every 3 seconds is an ongoing line, so your planet is never in the same location. So maxing frequency lines of panels, processing position location system. So your planet's here now on a different call, but same lines of operation of the same channel. So that converts the system all through setting of operation setting, all set position of bridging. Okay, so that communicates lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have 1 or more 6. This is 6 habitation zones, only in setting, not in habitation. So process center. So we got 6 planets in all coordinate centers location in one setting. Okay, so that's basically understand that, how to see it in information system all through travel. Okay, all through your simulation, your planetary system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 habitation zones, right? So you can have 6 planets connecting with you all at once. Now, this is all referenced, and the body has to adjust and align itself, knowing it's already done through its equation. But you have to listen to everything in operation setting because you're connected to everything, and everything's connecting you through tether and attached to your setting through your phone calls. So basically, a phone call itself is recognizing you already know this already, that you already had conversation, which means you already talked to this person already on the phone. It's no difference in that position, but you have to understand how to use it through 01, your area code, which is the planet you want to connect to, and that position open transmission, and your set position and settings, your number, right? But dispatch is always in triangulation box, your flux, and your Fibonacci. So you get connected with that settings and that position locations. So either you're on waiting call or on standby, but I will get back to you. Outgoing mail, you got mail. Okay? So that's how you process. There's 6 habitation zones in your system of solar system. Now, your solar system is intertract center convergence setting, not the solar system of space. This is a solar system inside your setting. The solar system is all about understanding you through a solar planet, but you're in this position of your solar line of communication first. So you have to understand your solar self. To understand that modification setting is understand how to go in that position, how you see yourself in all communication settings, your Discord and your dispatch. How you modify that position is how you want to talk to this person, how you want to talk to that person, you know? You're on a waiting call, right? They're going to answer back this way, that way, this way, that way. But everything your body goes through is now converting to centers of time frame. And so this helps you to identify where the body comes in direct line sync as it's focusing on what it's seeing, knowing exactly what it's already gone through. It's through its time frame that processes everything through its symbiote that's already gone through travel. So the body gets a lot more adjusted and formed in this formation setting, then it comes in its full relation in its time frame in that configuration of that person that it meets in that time setting in real time, okay? But you have to modify going through everything that you mutate through your symbiote to understand the sentient of the time frame that processes no time frame. Get you out of line communication, out of your registration paths of timelines, and get into your own timeline position, how you see your Earth, ground lines of gravities, your inbounds, and your outbounds of space, okay? Understand how to see the Earth line and space line at the same time. Seeing everything all at once, okay? Not just in one frame, all frames all at once, in circuits and rotations, and everything happening all at once. And that's what constantly keeps changing. That's what constantly keeps protecting his identity of what everything goes into. When one symbiote goes to one clock in one time frame, where the body has to adjust and align itself, so it knows exactly the time frame it's coming in and set lines of operation set into its algorithm. Opposition to its 6 habitation zones, all through setting of its Earth. Okay? The Earth itself, an operation setting. Okay? The set lines of operation. Okay? All through travel. Okay? So there you go. 6 habitation zones, ongoing conversations. So that's 6 planets, trying to get your communications of your setting where your body has to readjust and form itself, knowing exactly it's getting 6 pings on different lines of channel, but the same operation center. So you get 6 tethers of attachment locates of 6 planets in one cycle. So it's kind of like you're having an ongoing conversation, but you hear somebody in the background. That's another planet coming in, right? So it's all about understanding somebody wants to hear you and you hear the background of somebody else. That's another planet. Okay, so that's about understanding, getting connected with that. So you come in a time frame in that formation setting. So when a planet comes in that position, if it's in its background, it's ready to get in its time frame with you, where the body has adjusted its alignment to go in that algorithm, time after time, in chronological order. So you get in specific locations and knowing how to use your subconscious and your all line centers in position direct online. This helps you to identify your systems, how you go in your modification setting. Triangulation box of your flux and your Fibonacci, okay? That's how you connect to dispatch, okay? So they identify your models and prototypes. That's how they connect to your system through identities. So that's how they know you, right? So, and then you basically, what do you want to connect with? So you automatically click Fibonacci, okay? Connect to position locations. You got your indication setting, what planet you want to connect with, and travel, okay? Through bridging, right? So you're going to process triangulation here in the center, okay? Then you process your box, outline, position your system, and your windows of frame and travel, okay? And basically you put your flux in the center operates in your system, okay, which is your pi, okay? So that's how you get connected all one. Process here in the 4 center locations. There's your provision cycles and settings. Now you set position lines as calculation setting. 0, 1 becomes your 5-line grounds, okay? Set lines of position, which is your base, okay? Which is your energetic dome. Process your direct center locations, your levels that you travel through. That modifies everything in your 144 flux and time centers locations in your astral projection year travels or crop circles of your XT thousands and 144 flux lines of travel. Sets lines of communication. Okay? So once you send that, then you go through this level and then you go through this level. Okay? So it goes from that, right? So it goes here and it goes here. So you got 3 teleportation vessels in the same direction. Okay? So you got 3 ongoing conversation calls and 3 lines of different vessels of communication. Okay? So I'm trying to get you guys to understand how this all works in that position. They're dispatched and Discord. Discord is basically setting up another channel operation lines of default into an line position with another failsafe to another call. But you have to go through default channels. Now that gets positioned to defrag your fragmentation lines. We won't get into that. We just want to get into the simulation where you are and know exactly how to use your intel of your super consciousness. So you can understand how to communicate your 6 planetary zones of your habitation settings and timeline. That puts you in the process of communicating the system all through travel. Okay? So there you go. It's that position of operation. Okay? So you get a better understanding how this all works. All right? How you process the right and the left eye and projections of operation setting, because now they're traveling through your bodies. And you have to indicate that because they see you as super intelligence of machinery now. Now this comes in your position, how you see yourself in your habitation zones as things are traveling through you in that position and settings. Okay? Now processing through that, you understand how to use your lines of connection, your thoughts, action, emotions. It's already set in lines of provision in itself and locations. But the more that body comes into direction, the more it understands what's going through time. Okay? You're extremely welcome, Roots. That's why I want you guys to understand. It's very powerful what you're all coming into. Welcome to the super intelligence worlds of space-time operations, where you start to understand how to use your intel, where your body just has to line and connect with everything that it sees in time, because it has its relationship. And when it goes through its relation, through its symbiote, it transforms into real time through the body, where you come in a time scale, time measure in the argon of its time itself, that you modify through your clocking and foundation of itself. This helps you to really get in position location of balance in your systems, all through traction. Okay? That's how it works. Okay? So it's going to be much easier for you to balance these things out through your system, because you'll have more gravity now and understand the capacity of what's going on as you travel through the Earth grounds of 0-1 and the space grounds of 0-1. Okay? How to clock the system and foundations of 2 minutes on Earth, position foundations, but in space, it's 2 hours. And that's how you get balanced with both, through truth and false narrative. That you start to see just the perspective of mass that E equals mc squared. Okay? That's how it modifies everything inside position operation setting. Okay? All right. So you guys already know your test. That's already set lines of travel. That lines the grounds. This is going to help you to identify your settings, your longitude, your latitudes of your streaming. So we're going to the Gulf streams next and set lines of calculations. Okay? Adios.